Good day, gearhead friends. So today's little project on the KTM 390 Adventure is a kickstand safety switch delete. As you've seen from my other videos, I don't post videos unless I've got something meaningful to say or something worthwhile to offer. This is one of those things, I believe. I've adjusted the magnetic proximity switch down here on the kickstand to try to keep it from activating the switch while you're riding the bike. And the time that happens is typically off-road. When I'm off-road, and if this kickstand bounces like it does whenever you're going over really rough terrain, it'll kill the motor. You know, it'll start interrupting the motor. Now, obviously that is a safety device for people that forget to put up their kickstand, put it in gear, and take off. I can remember seeing a lot of people back in the day, a lot of sport bike riders take off, kickstand down, and they'd hit that kickstand and about throw the bike over. So they started installing these safety switches on a lot of motorcycles, and they're pretty common anymore. I don't think they can even, it might even be a safety rule they have to put one on. I don't know. All I know is that if they work right, you'll never have an issue with them. But if there is something about it that's poorly conceived, then you will have an issue with them. And this one is poorly conceived. Maybe you could update the spring to a higher tension spring, and that would stop it. But even just this little bit, just that little bounce right there, will interrupt the motor. It'll kill the motor constantly. I ran into this a lot off-road, and to me, that becomes a bigger safety issue than worrying about taking off my kickstand down. And the reason that's a safety issue is that if I'm on a really steep descending grade, or if I'm in a really hard climb and I got a motor that keeps cutting out because it's rough and bouncy, that's a big problem for me. And it's become one of those things I just can't frickin' tolerate anymore. So it is a pain in the ass to put this switch in, at least on this model. This is a 2023. I've taken the side cover off up here. You have the ignition coil cover, and incidentally, I was watching another video. This is your ignition coil. All right, it is not your voltage regulator. Let's see here. That is your voltage regulator right up there. Okay, so don't be confused by those. Voltage regulator, ignition coil. And right there is the pigtail for the safety switch. That guy right there. And they cram it way up inside here to where maybe if you had the hands of a 5-year-old, you'd be able to get to it. But I just simply struggled trying to get to it. They bury it back in there pretty tight, and it's in a loom of wires that's all really pretty tight. So the reason I'm doing this video is to show you how I got mine on. I reached in through the front, right up in here. Whoops, let me grab my light again. I reached in down through there with one of my hooks, and I could pull it out. And that's what I did. I pulled it out, and so that's what you see sitting right there. Let me try to grab it. I know the lighting sucks. I apologize. But there it is right there. I could pull the connecting end up through that hole and get my switch in. And I'm just tucking it right back in there locally. I'm not going to jam it all the way back inside the loom with everything else. Right there is where it's going to live. It's in a safe spot. It's protected down in there, and that way if I have future issues with it, it should be quick to access. Like I said, you should not have to pull everything off, like your side cover and everything. You should be able to reach it right there behind the ignition coil. But you know, I don't necessarily have big hands, but unless you got the hands of a 5-year-old, again, the actual place that it's connecting on the bike is back up behind this, way back up in there. You can't get a hand through here. You could try to take the voltage regulator off to try to get in through there, but this was the simplest route that I could go. So just remember, when you reassemble your ignition coil. Make sure you get the ground back on it. Very, very important. I'm going to take this end, put a cap over it, even though there's no current running through that right now. I'll just put a cap over it to keep crap and garbage, dirt and stuff out of it. Otherwise, though, I think it'll work just fine. So that's about it. This one here, this switch did come from an eBay store. I think it was about $30 delivered to my door. It is from Smart Moto. Installation instructions, you have to go on there, and all they do is tell you disconnect the wire, plug this one in. I didn't see a bike specific instruction for it, but so you do have to trace the wiring up the frame all the way up around through and keep tracing it and tracing it and tracing it with your fingers. It is running right back here. It's running right inside there, right along there, going all the way down to the kickstand safety switch. It's running right behind this rail all the way up in here until it drops down and it starts to route through the loom in there. So if you do happen to try it, this one was, I think, $30 shipped to me. It's supposed to be the proper impedance, the same as the switch is down here, so that it shouldn't throw the computer any glitches or anything funky to cause that warning light to come on. So after I get this all assembled, I will turn the camera back on and we'll look at my dash and make sure that I'm not throwing any codes.